Hello and welcome to another episode on Maros Bonsai channel. Today I'm here in my workshop working on small group of Cornus sanguinea, which consists of 5 cuttings which I planted somewhere in my garden into some container. I don't know when. I don't know what kind of source material I used. I simply don't remember. I just know that some time ago, maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago, I must have planted few cuttings of Cornus sanguinea from some source. And I don't remember from where I took them. And they were staying there in a big container, and most probably sometime around last year I decided that maybe I will do something from those cuttings, and I repot them into this Chinese pot and took few wires and just decided to make more, let's say, space between those trunks. And I was thinking maybe it could be some kind of group or forest. I would like to talk with you about forest plantings. You may have seen already few of my videos where I'm working on my Japanese maple forest, and I have a couple other projects which I can call forests or groups. I have few other elm groups, some Cornus mass groups, and so on and so on. So it's not only this, but this is very interesting group because it's composed of really nothing. It's just few cuttings which survived. Suddenly, when I used, as you see, 1, 2, 3, 4 wires, nothing more. The upper crowns were never wired. It was never styled. It looks somewhat believable. So I would like to talk about how the forests can be created and how they are growing maybe in the nature, and what we can take as inspiration from nature in creating this kind of compositions. I was thinking maybe this group is good example. Usually this kind of groups or forests consist of multiple trees. This particular one is very unusual because these 3 trees are twin trunks. So most probably my cuttings were junctions sticked into the pot. This one is single, and this one is single, and this is rose. This is not Cornus sanguinea, this is small rose, which somehow found the way into this composition and seed itself there. So what I did this year when I planted it, and I had one major problem, and this was this tree, which was in this negative space. It was going here and it was crossing this trunk and crossing this trunk, and whatever front I choose, I may choose something maybe like this from front camera, or maybe something like this. But in any way, this tree going here and crossing those 2 trunks or those 2 sub-trunks of one tree was no-go. So I took rather strong wire and started to pull it this way. I did it in several attempts, and now it can go even more. So I want to pull it more into this empty space, so it's not crossing those trunks. So maybe I can do that a little bit. The last thing I want is to break this tree now in the winter. So this was main concern. The rest was more or less okay. I think this is the thickest tree, which is good rule for creating forests and groups, that you have to have something like main tree, which is usually somewhere in the center, but not completely in the middle, a little bit off the center. And usually this is the thickest tree which is on the side. So maybe I can grow this one to be tallest one and the thickest one. It's achievable in few seasons. I can let it grow with few sacrificed branches, and it could be thickest part of the composition, and then it will be centrally here, and it will more or less protecting hold the group. Yeah. So what this group is telling me now, that maybe it is growing somewhere where the prevailing wind is from this side, from the camera, and these two big trees, which will be most probably the tall about like this, finally, they are protecting this second group of trees. So those two trees are at the windward edge of the forest, taking the heavy blunt of the wind coming from the camera direction. They are protecting those younger trees, and those younger trees are bending the crowns and are trying to adapt to this wind and are going into this direction. So all these crowns are going here. And the last tree, which is here, it's really heavily leaning because it's shaded by this tree, which is here, and it's looking for a space where to have more energy for its foliage. So it's leaning heavily under this tree. It's separated from it, and it's trying to accumulate as much light as possible here. Also, this one is going here into this empty space. Maybe it will be bigger in the future, and this crown will be stronger. This branch is a little bit awkward here, and it's going in almost 90 degrees direction from this small trunk. So most probably I will wire it in the spring and pull it a little more up, so it will look more like sub-trunk going in a steeper angle here, and most probably going into this direction, so it will be rhyming with the rest of those branches going into this direction. So this is what this group tells me. Also, there is a path, yeah, and there is a hill for where the biggest tree is here. So most probably it has the best condition, and this is the top of the hill. There is not so much branching inside, so this kind of group is creating the impression that maybe this kind of hedge, like really in nature, this Cornus sanguinea are hedges somewhere between the bigger trees and are providing protection, for example, for animals, for small deers, which usually on this kind of places are sleeping protected from the wind and rain. So this is creating this kind of impression that maybe somewhere between those edges some small animals can find the shelter from the weather. While working here on this group today, I was wondering what kind of forces are shaping groups or forests in the nature. Take a few cuttings from something which is rooting very easily. Most probably the sanguinea is rooting very easily, but there are other species, like in my experience, a lot of maples, Japanese maples, are rooting very easily. A lot of, let's say, elms and so on and so on. So you can take a lot of species which have very good potential to become forest and try to play with that. It's not that complicated. Yeah, you just take, like Walter used to say, if you want to make a forest of 20 trees, you take 50. You choose the 20 best trees, place them randomly. You try to avoid, let's say, if you choose your front, you try to avoid so they are, let's say, overlapping each other from the frontal position. So all the trunks are visible. You try to space them in both axes and try to create the illusion of depth and put the highest tree somewhere in one of the thirds, and the tallest one is usually very straight and the rest is trying to bend away from the tallest tree which is there. This is not typical example, but this is not typical forest composition. In this kind of forest compositions we have different forces which are influencing and which are forcing those trees to cooperate. We have the light, we have wind which is coming in this, for example, in this composition is most probably from this side. The trees which are growing so close to each other are usually the root balls of these trees are so entangled together, and they are sometimes merging together and growing together, and they are sharing the resources between all the trees, and sometimes the bigger trees with better access to resources can help the smaller trees and feed them. Also, those bigger trees are protecting the smaller trees from the heaviest blast of the wind and the snow, so they are in harmony. So on my walks in the forest, I try to look how the trees are growing there and how the groups are growing there, and I'm trying to use it as a blueprint for my creations and also for this creation, and I'm trying to mimic it. Not try to copy it one to one, but try to find the, let's say, those traits which are worthy of copying into the miniature forest. Another important factor in nature which is influencing the growth of the groups and forests is amount of resources which this kind of forest has on a place where it's growing. So in case the area where the forest is growing is rich on resources, the trees can grow very tightly to each other. In case we want to mimic something, some group or forest which is growing in not so rich environment where the trees need to compete for resources, for nitrogen, for other micronutrients from the soil, the spacing between the individual trees could be larger, because in case you have, for example, seedlings falling down from the mature trees on the ground, and there is not enough light and there is not enough resources, they have to compete with mature trees and they will not sprout. In case you have sparse branching and the soil is rich, usually some of them will grow and they are protected by mature trees and they are growing really straight up, and the big trees are protecting them from the wind and from the other extreme events of weather, and they can become denser and denser. So it depends what we want to mimic. This group, to me, it looks sparse. Of course, now it's sitting in a quite deep pot due to horticultural reasons, but most probably one of the possibilities is, I don't know, it's not really developed so well, but one of the possibilities is that I will take it out from this container and plant it onto very shallow slate stone which I have in a garden prepared from the quarry. I will fix it on this very, very thin piece of stone, and it will look completely different. Now the pot is very heavy and the trunks are not so big, so it looks unbalanced, But it could be, I'm not saying it have to be, it can, I'm not saying it have to be finished tree if I put it on a stone, but it will look completely different, and maybe even with the so subtle thickness of the trunks, it could look much more mature because of, let's say, 8 mm or 10 mm thick stone plate on which it will be potted. So this is one of the options. I don't know if I will do it, but maybe. So big advantage with this kind of groups is that you can achieve the sense of maturity much earlier than with individual trees, and putting together something like this, it's extremely cheap. It's nothing complicated, few cuttings, few years of work, and you can have something which looks really, really nice and you can enjoy it. Also, you can look, for example, on autumn pictures of this group now on your display, and you can see that not only trunks have very beautiful color now, but also the autumn foliage was fantastic, and the size of the foliage was something amazing. The mature foliage of Cornus sanguinea is something like 5 to 10 centimeters big, but these leaves on this tree, I have one small dry leaf here, were small like this, so it was really, really small foliage. So it's a lot of joy, some work, but it's easily achievable. You have to respect some of the basic design principles. You can go into the nature and copy what you see, what kind of groups are growing in the nature. Let me use this opportunity and tell you that since the community page is now working and you can send me the pictures, now it's really good time. We are approaching the Christmas time and New Year's Eve and holiday time, and of course the days are not so long, but when there will be good weather and you will be outside on a walk with your family or with your dog, take the camera out from your pocket and make few good pictures of some outstanding group or forest you will see on your hill next to your place, and share it with us in community page, and maybe some of those pictures I will show in one of the future videos dedicated to design. So that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.